Hi, in this tutorial, we'll be creating a randomized mask for VDMX using the ISF editor. I'm going to start by taking the checker mask that we worked on in the last tutorial and copying that, and then making a new patch, pasting this in, hitting save, and we'll call this our random squares mask. And this is going to work in a very similar way, but instead of using this math here, we'll use some other math to determine how this works. So I'm going to start by grabbing a randomized function. So I'm going to go over to our system effects and go under noise, and I'm going to use this randomize function here, and then switch back to our effect here and paste in our random function. So GLSL doesn't include its own random functions. A pseudo random function. And in the notes for this, I'll explain why that's actually really useful here. So what we're basically going to want to do is, instead of breaking things up by using mod math, we'll want to determine our offset based off of our pixel location. So we'll call this maybe our grid index. And that's essentially going to be, we'll start that off as being 0, 0. And what we'll do is, if we're not at a size of 0, if we're having a size of 0, we're just going to have no alpha adjustment. Everything will just be a pass-through. And otherwise, we'll figure out what our grid index is. So we'll figure that out by taking our coordinate and dividing it by our size and taking the floor of that value. So from here, we can do a randomized function based off of our grid index. So we'll do float value is equal to rand of our grid index. And now we'll just say if our value is less than a half, our alpha just is equal to 0. And now we have, based off of that, a randomized amount of grid. And if we adjust this, we can see that we're getting this randomized pattern. Next, we're going to want to change some of these inputs a little bit to kind of so maybe we'll do that. Or actually, let's leave that the same way and switch this back so we can still have our alpha 1 and alpha 2 in there. And there we go. So now we can still fade things in and out based off of the pattern. Is that affecting the whole thing, alpha 2 right now? Oh, no, there we go. Okay. So you can now choose that. The offset isn't currently being used, so if we want, we could do our offset plus our coordinate. So now we can shift this around while keeping the background exactly where it was. Next, we can add in some additional inputs. So two things that I like to include when I'm doing randomized functions are seeds. So maybe we'll do a seed value that goes from 0 to 1. We'll just give it a sort of random default value. And then the next option I like to have is my random threshold. And again, we can default that to a half, but we'll make the range 0 to 1. And now, for some of these places where we had hard-coded values, like a half here, we can set that to an adjustable value. And similarly, with our randomization, we can do our seed times the grid index. So now from here, we can change our pattern. And we can have all of the spots fill in or get pulled out. So this is a lot more fun than our basic checker mask. As a challenge, you could also make it so that another randomized value is the amount of alpha that gets added in here. But for now, let's just stick with this, and now switch over to VDMX and see how this can be used. So we'll lit up our linear gradient. We'll go under masking. Here's our random squares mask. Adjust the size of it. Change the seed until we have something we like. And now if we want to composite this over another image, say we have another linear gradient here, and we'll change the colors of this. Since we're masking and using alpha channels, now we can go under here for layer 1, change its composition to over. And now we have the places where one of our gradients shows through to the other one. We can open this up into its own window. And here we can slide the mask independently of the image behind it. We can adjust the width of it. And of course, the alpha values themselves and the threshold can also be adjusted. So this has been an example of creating a masking effect that uses some randomization techniques. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.